Is everyone okay? Comfortable? I'm not fully convinced. Well, it's a very beautiful day here. And if you look on your songbook, look in your songbook on page 295, you'll find a verse from Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī from the Chaitanya Chandamrita, which says that to the degree that one renders service to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, to that degree one becomes qualified to understand the pastimes in Vṛndāvana. There's no access at all to Vṛndāvana pastimes. As Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura wrote a couple of verses when the devotees were moving from Ultadanga Junction Road to the Bhag Bazar Mandir. He arranged for chariots for the deities, and then the devotees followed along, and he wrote specifically for that time some verses which are in this book. Which page? 262. 263. We'll look at before we even look at the Yata Yata Gora Padara Vindavi. If you wish. Do you wish? Yes. Your wishes will be fulfilled here in Tunga Vidya's abode. All desires for pure devotional service will be considered. No reasonable desire will be left unfulfilled. You may see the picture of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, and to the left you'll see Pujala Ragapat Gaurava Bhange. Please repeat. Why are you smiling so much? You remember from the youth yatra. Mattala Sadhu Jana Vishaya Range. Pujala Ragapat Gaurava Bhange. Matala Sadhu Jana Vishaya Range. And the translation is the path of spontaneous love. Too much gain? The path of spontaneous love for Krishna is worshipable to us and should be held overhead as our highest aspiration. We make no claims of being qualified. Once when I was traveling with a senior godbrother in many holy places, and each place we went, I know you've heard this story before, but it never gets old for me. Every temple we'd go to, we'd offer obeisances inside the temple to the deities, and we'd recite Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurapani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. And one day, even before we took our heads off the ground, he leaned to me and said, so every time we come before a deity of Krishna, we say our spiritual master's pranam mantra. Why are we doing that? And I said, you tell me, you're my senior godbrother. And he said, we're letting Krishna know who let us in here. Who asked us to come here? And who are we under? And there's a way in which, in the path of pure devotional service, one takes the attitude of humility. Trinadapi suni chena, toror api suhishnuna, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahare. Those who advance in devotional service have, along with the love they're developing for the Lord, an equal amount of dainya, or utter humility. In fact, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami points out that without dainya, there is no prema. They go simultaneously. And there's a way in which the abode of Vṛndāvana is not one that one can barge into and just assume that one has access to. One has to be firmly situated in the humble position of being the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, a million times removed, with great humility. And that the only reason I come is to render some service. Prabhupada said, come to Vṛndāvana for 3 days or 3 years. 3 years means you have some bona fide service you've been appointed to perform in the Dhāma, or you're here to take a little time to experience the Dhāma, but come here very carefully, gingerly walk with humility to the various places and don't assume that you're a great rasika Vaiṣṇava because you're here. And this is indicated in this prayer of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. He was meticulous in inculcating this mood with his disciples because there's a way in which one may assume and then not have access. So what gives us qualification? As Madhavānanda Prabhu was saying the other day, to enter we have to have passport and visa. Means you are given some permission to enter by your guru, and you're seriously coming in with a mission to serve and to become a better servitor. And then we have, back to the other verse on 295, it's a telling verse about the process that our Gaudiya Acharyas have laid out for us. This epitomizes, no epitome. Yata yata, I'll say, please repeat. Yata yata gaura padara vinde. Vindeta bhaktim krita punya rashi. Tata tato sarpati hridya kasmad. Radha padamboja sudamburasi. To the degree that we surrender to Lord Chaitanya's service, to that degree we gain qualification for the service of Radharani's lotus feet in Vraj. That is Radha padamboja sudamburasi. It means there's a natural awakening in the heart, or really poetically, there's a flood that occurs in the heart. But how does it happen? By this service mood to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is Radha and Krishna combined. And Narottam Das Thakur confirms in his song Gaurangera Dhutipada, worshipping the lotus feet of Gauranga, who is, as Kaviraj Goswami says, the deity of the Paramahamsas. That when one dives into the ocean of Sankirtan, then one comes out on the shore of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And this is the process that has been passed down to us by our great Acharyas. And so therefore, to begin here in our Vṛndāvana Parikram, we'll start by reciting the Mangalacharna from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, starting with verse number 1. And this you'll find in your songbook, in your hymnal, on page number 165. And if you always carry your songbook and look on, by the time you finish when this yatra, then you'll know all the verses. Because when you sing them in a mood of service, then you'll remember them very quickly. Krishna will emblazon them on the inside of your brain. Ready? And now we'll sing the prayers to the 6 Goswamis. Tachchadadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashantyatmani chatmanam bhakta shruta grihitaya. We'll find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto and the second chapter, that Sutta Goswami says, in order to understand the various features of the Lord, which we did discuss when we were in Jagannath Puri, didn't we? Say yes. We talked about Vedanti Tattva Vidas Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdite. Although the Lord is Advaya Gyan Tattva, it's one thing. There are various qualities or features, varieties within the absolute truth. And we talked about Brahman, how Krishna is the source of Brahman. We talked about its nature, its quality. We talked about Paramatma and how one can perceive the presence of Paramatma. Bhagavan requires bhakti. And the next verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, after Vedanti Tattva Vidas, we have Sutta Goswami telling us how to lay the foundation for our bhakti. Tachstradadhana munayo. One must be very eager to hear. Tachstradadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya. And one must be fortified with knowledge and detachment from the world, which naturally comes from performing devotional service. The verse for 20 points. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga 20. Anybody started later? 10. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jana Yashavairagyam Jnanam Charyara. By doing devotional service to Krishna, there's a concomitant. Naturally, knowledge and detachment come to such a person. One must be fortified with these. Tachstradadhana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grahitaya. And one must have heard from the standard literatures. Those who do not have sambandha gyan or an acquaintance with especially the writings of the Goswamis cannot enter the path of bhakti. This is also a prerequisite, and it's mentioned in this verse. And then Prabhupada gives this purport to understand that without the Goswamis, who are the associates of Krishna in the spiritual world who have appeared with Lord Chaitanya, there are pictures that Prabhupada commissioned, although he didn't pay for them. He asked them to be painted, commissioned in that sense, that he wanted to show the parallel between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes and Lord Krishna's pastimes. And for instance, in one of the paintings we know, well, there's the rasa dance, and then there's what? Harinam the Nam Sankirtan. And so he's showing the parallel between the two. And there are various other examples of this Prabhupada gives throughout his writings, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Gauragana Desha Dipika, is explaining how the pastimes of Lord Gora, Lord Gauranga, and the Nitya Siddha devotees there, they are from Krishna's Leela. But they've come in Lord Chaitanya's Leela to show the pathway for those in the Kali Yuga who can to perform devotional service, what to speak of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda themselves, who come as devotees. Instead of as avatars, they present themselves as devotees of the Lord, and they show the process of devotional service. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had asked the Goswamis to explicate the process of devotional service. So we have some of the books that we have from the Goswamis. Would you like to name? Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in summary form also known as? And then what else do we have? We have the Upadeshamrita. Who's that written by? And what else? Briyat Bhagavatamrita we have. And, I'm sorry? Satsandarbhas are yet to be released. They're coming out, though, from the BBT, one by one. They're not so easy to produce because actually getting them all out. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is coming out its entirety from the BBT soon. It's taken about 4 years to edit the edition that Bhanu Maharaj made. So in this way, the foundational understanding of devotional service, Tachstradadhana Munayo, is indicated in this verse. So let's pray to the Goswamis on what page? 273 is the winning number. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains how the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. Urdhva mula madashakam ashvatam prahar avyayam chandamsi yasya parnani yastam veda savedavit. right? And Jiva Goswami, one of our Acharyas who we just celebrated in this song, explains that what is eternal pleasure in the spiritual world becomes a cause of misery here in the material world because of this topsy-turviness, the reflection of reality. Here, although it seems like a good idea at the time, it leads to more and more misery. The Shaktis of the spiritual world, which are generally categorized in three, are Hladini, Samvit, and Sandini. And these three Shaktis, the Sandini Shakti, which is the foundational aspects of all the forms of the spiritual world, which give variety there for Krishna's pastimes. The Hladini Shakti is the source of all happiness and bliss, which is from Srimati Radharani. Which one did I miss? And Samvit potency, the potency of knowledge to know. It's okay. It's a little Barshana cat. Everyone take a deep breath. One more breath. You have something to tell everyone at home. So, when the three potencies of the spiritual world are translated into the material world, you get sattva, rajas, and tamas. And in each one of those qualities of the material world, you have a complication for the soul, who's incompatible with any combination or permutation of the inferior energy of the Lord. And so in the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which we find out that Janmadya Sayataha, God is that from whom everything else emanates. So what about the activities that we see all around us? They're all there in the spiritual world, but they're manifested here. And the great commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Jiva Goswami, talks about the Adiras in the spiritual world, which means the center of all attraction in the spiritual world is the Adiras. What is the Adiras? It's the relationship between Radha and Krishna. It's center stage for everyone. And in the spiritual world, Radha and Krishna have their Nitya Lila. And of course, it's taking place here in Vṛndāvana. When that Adiras, through being translated from the spiritual world to the material world, is manifest in the same idea, which is there's man, woman, then pumsastriya maitini bhava metam toyomritur hridaya grantamahu atogriya kshetrit satapta vitar janasya moho yamaham mameti, which basically translated means you need to get a mortgage, because you're going to have to, if you get attracted, the idea of men and women being attracted to the material world seems like a good idea, but then it leads to a sense of entanglement. Not a sense of entanglement, a definite entanglement. Of course, all practical matters must be dealt with in a commonsensical way, which they are in the Varnashram system, through which we don't simply say, well, then forget the whole thing, because that's not so easy. Everyone regulates the way that they live in this world, including married life. But the ultimate goal and the panacea for material miseries is to become reattracted to the Adiras and not more entangled in the reflection here in this world. So, as I mentioned this morning, any taste we get from the three modes of material nature, even goodness, if you live in goodness you may have a clean diet, and you may stay clean and have clean habits and so forth, you'll be happier than most people. But eventually, everything gets churned here in the material world. What is up at the moment, later on you'll say, what are you doing down there? What happened to you? Everything gets moved, and whatever you start here that looks like it's meritorious, it ends up twisting in the wind somewhere and going sideways. So the only solution is to extricate oneself altogether, categorically, from this world by gradually transferring one's attention to the spiritual world. And we find in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavis Tavirya Eva Nijarupataya Kalavi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Bhuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Which means you're in luck, because we have information about what's going on in the spiritual world and who it's all coming from. It's coming from Krishna's pleasure potency, who's the person, Srimati Radharani. And she's engaged with all of her associates or her expansions. Srimati Radharani is the primal Shakti of Krishna. And she expands herself into the queens in Dwarka, and then into the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha, and then into Durga Devi here in the material world. It's all coming from Srimati Radharani. And when we come to Vṛndāvana, and we visit these places, Vaiṣṇava, where there are unlimited pastimes in the Bhakti Ratnakara, you can read for pages and pages and pages about the Leela that goes on here in the Vaiṣṇava area. There are eternal kunjas and bathing places and areas where Krishna demanded tax from Srimati Radharani and her from Krishna demanded tax from Srimati Radharani and her friends, carrying goods like yogurt and so forth. And all these, called the Nitya Lila, are the source of the greatest happiness. And this is to be imbibed, says Sutta Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hrityantaksto Hibadrani, Vidunoti Suritstam. What's actually taking place when one hears about reality, which is the most beautiful, then gradually one's long-cherished desire for trying to enjoy the reflection of that reality becomes nullified. And one becomes more and more attached to hearing about Krishna, and subsequently the fever of material existence, which is instigated by the lower modes of material nature, diminishes, and one finds one's real life. So that even as one lives in this world, one is absorbed in the spiritual world. For example, Uddhava, when he meets Vidura in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the other way around, when Vidura meets Uddhava, which happens here in Vṛndāvana. Uddhava has been to see Krishna. He saw him in Dwarka when he understood that he was going to leave the world, and at that time Krishna spoke to him the Uddhava Gita, which is an expansion of his teachings to Arjuna at Kurukshetra. And then later, when Krishna was overseeing his final pastimes in this world, and Uddhava met him again, one-to-one in a lonely forest. And there he heard more. So did Maitreya, who just happened to walk by at that time. And later, when Uddhava was in Vṛndāvana, he met Vidura, and Vidura asked him to speak about Krishna. And it took Uddhava a moment to wrest his attention from the spiritual realm to be in the presence of Vidura in a way that he could articulate those pastimes. And as Prabhupada mentioned, he was living simultaneously walking in this world, but he was absorbed in the spiritual world. And this is the nature of a Vaiṣṇava. Bhavad vida bhagavatas tirthabhuta swayambhivo tirtha kurvanti tirtani svantakstena gadabrita. Yudhishthira told Vidura that you're a walking place of pilgrimage, because what's in your heart is the Dhāma. Actually, even more valuable than Krishna being in one's heart is love for Krishna in one's heart, and that's what the devotees carry with them. So he said, you even purify the places of pilgrimage. So, having said that, I'm going to read a few highly esoteric qualities of Tunga Vidya. And in two documents, can it go sideways so that it's not at 8-point font? So I quoted the verse, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis from the Brahma Samhita. Who's familiar with that verse? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you familiar with the purport? Do you know how many pages it is? A lot. It's a lot of pages. Do you know what it's about? It's mostly about arts and crafts. And you see here the dolls, the playhouse. All of Krishna's pastimes are, in the spiritual world, they're artsy craftsy. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Tavi. It's not corporate stuff. They're not making widgets and bolts or inventing new technologies for social media exploitation. They're all heartfelt ways in which you can create music. Tunga Vidya, you'll notice she plays a tempura on the altar on the right-hand side. You'll see she's on Krishna's left. There's a little sign that says Tunga Vidya, and then she's there with her tempura. And that's a full-time occupation, music. In fact, in the Bhagavatam, in our BBT version of the Bhagavatam, in the purports, there's an explanation about how important raga, music, tonalities, scales are in the spirit. Quote from various shastras that prove that in the spiritual world where we are right now, each one of the associates of Krishna has her own unique raga. How many gopis are there? A lot, because they're in the billions and billions. Yes, the number of expansions of Srimati Radharani are unlimited because Krishna's appetite for enjoyment is unlimited. It's not, this is enough. There's always more. That's why he expands into living entities also. He wants more appreciators. That's what we are. That's our job. We're trying to do our job here. So our job is, which you can write on your embarkation. Is it called an embarkation card? When you come into the country and they ask you, what the heck are you doing here? What's your occupation? You know those things you fill out? What do you put? Appreciator. Because that's our constitutional position, is to just appreciate Krishna and to increase our appreciation for him. And he has unlimited expansions, and they're all worshiping Krishnas in various ways. So then there's a hierarchy. I was saying, each one of them has a raga. And then, actually, the Shastra goes on to say, even in the material world, there are how many species of life? For 20 points. 5 points, actually. Okay. 8,400,000? Okay. Can you name them all? That's all right. Even oceanographers say they only know about 7% of what's in the ocean. Every one of the species of life has a unique raga also. This is stated in the purport. So music, raga, sound of raga, which evokes a certain loving mood of service to Krishna is the priority in the spiritual world. In fact, you'll find that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, and if you weren't there, you better be there next year because it's so fantastic. He was in the Gambhira, and what was he doing? He was listening to raga, different songs of Jayadev Goswami from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from Rasa Shastras, sung by these eternal associates in various ragas meant to bring out the loving sentiments there within the heart. Music is a universal language. So you find Tungavidya, she plays beautifully, sings beautifully, and it's one of her qualities. And then, of course, if you read that purport, you'll find all kinds of arts, crafts, won't you? Yeah? Can you remember any of them? Okay, give him the microphone. He's got it open. Give Shamyapras the microphone. Few samples for you. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. What is the enjoyment in the spiritual world? What's the variety going on? Yes.
Here we go. Tandula Kusuma Bali Vikara, art of preparing offerings from rice and flowers. Mani Bhumika Karma, art of making the groundwork of jewels. Karanapatra Bhanga, art of decorating the tragus of the ear. Sugandha Yukti, art of practical application of aromatics. There's a long list. Pattika Vetrabana Vikalpa, art of designing preparation of shield, cane, and arrows. Pakshana, art of carpentry. Shukasharika Prapalana, art of maintaining or knowing conversation between male and female cockatoos. Vaijayiki Vidya, art of gaining victory. Durvachaka Yoga, art of practicing language difficult to be answered by others. 64 items here.
Which goes to prove that, as it says in the Krishna book, Krishna really has nothing to do. And Giriraj Maharaj told us that once Prabhupada said, when asked, why does Krishna play a flute? He said, it means that he's all play and no work. And there are unlimited ways in which the Krishna plays with his devotees and interacts artfully with colors, with music, with sound, with humor. And in this way, there's rasa in the spiritual world, relationships that are ever expanding. It's not like the relationships in the material world where, affected by the modes of material nature, they turn into something else over time, like a bad dream. Somebody who's beautiful morphs into something ugly. Krishna is astonishing because he's actually becoming more appealing and attractive at every moment. It's hard to conceive of with the material mind, and therefore we're transferring context from the material world to the spiritual world, and that's what's going on here in Vṛndāvana. And as esoteric as it is, I'm going to read with that context, some of the qualities of Tunga Vidya. The exalted qualities of Tunga Vidya are described by Sri Sri Radha Krishna, Gona Desha Deepika, and the Gora Govinda Charna Smarana Padati. Which Padati? Okay. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gona Desha Deepika states that Tunga Vidya is the fifth of the Varishta Gopis, the best of the Gopis. Her complexion is the color of kumkum, and the fragrance of her body is like sandalwood mixed with camphor. She is 15 days younger than Srimati Radharani. Tunga Vidya is hot-tempered and expert at dissimulation. Somebody look that up. She wears white garments. Her parents are Pushkar and Meda Devi, and her husband is Balisa. Tunga Vidya is one of the leaders of the gopis. She is learned in the 18 branches of knowledge. She has full faith in Krishna. She is very expert at arranging the meeting of the divine couple. She is learned in Rasa Shastra. transcendental mellows, Niti Shastra, morality, dancing, drama, literature, and all other arts and sciences. She is a celebrated music teacher, expert at playing the veena and singing in the style known as Marga. 8 Gopi messengers headed by Manjumeda Devi are especially expert at arranging political alliances, Sandhi, the first of diplomatic maneuvers in the art of politics between Radha and Krishna. These gopis are the best of dancers. They are musicians, expert at playing the mridanga and singing in recital halls. These gopis are especially engaged in fetching water from the streams of Vṛndāvana. Tunga Vidya is the leader of these gopis. Just wanted to give you a sample of a variety of qualities. There's a way in which I saw a documentary about making television shows, and the cornerstone of the documentary was about how it's all about the characters. You may notice that those programs that people watch again and again, they have different characters. It's not just one handsome man and that's all there is. It's a handsome man, handsome woman, that's it. You also have to have a nerd, and you have to have somebody who goofs up all the time, and you have to have maybe somebody who has a sharp tongue. And when you put all these together, as pointed out by the curators of these shows, then you get something interesting. What's this one going to say? What's their relationship with that one? And then there's some tension that's going on between the main characters, especially, always tension. So where does that come from? Or soap operas. Do they have those in India? I know them from when I was a kid, because when I was sick and I had to stay home from school, all that was on television was the soap operas. General Hospital, and I can't remember the other ones. As the World Turns. Yeah, that's right. So there's a way in which all this comes from the spiritual world. But here everyone's just imitating, and it's not satisfying ultimately. But in the spiritual world, one show after another, after another, after another, after another, in different combinations, permutations, variety. If we don't have that, we're not going to be satisfied. Bhagavatam says if you want to merge into a homogeneous pulsation of nothingness, then good luck. Because you're a soul and you have this innate need for variety and enjoyment. Rasa Vaiṣṇava. And Krishna is the reservoir of all that. And it all emanates from the fountainhead. He's the fountainhead of it all. He and Srimati Radharani here in Rajadam. So this is our philosophy, that there is a love affair. Everyone wants to know the supreme love affair. It's okay. And to listen to. Not only is it okay to listen to, if you don't listen to it, you're going to listen to the love affair of the material world. And therefore, at the end of the Rasa Lila, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami says, Vikriditam vrajavadurbir aham cha Vishnu, shradhanvitona shindu yadata varna yadya. Bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhyakamam hridrogam ashva pahihnot yacharena tira. That the pastimes between Radha and Krishna, the playful, loving pastimes between Krishna and his associates, especially the young gopi girls, by hearing those Shraddhanvito with the right context. And again, this is emphasized because oftentimes people rush in and they say, oh yeah, I get that. It's just like me. I have a girlfriend too. Yippee. But that's different from the 6 Goswamis who had Tyakvatuna Mashesha Mandalapati. They had no more interest in the material world. Or Shukadeva Goswami, as we learned the other day, even as he left home, he was completely naked. He walked by a pokor where beautiful young women were bathing naked, and they didn't bother to cover up because they thought, well, he doesn't even notice the external feature. Those are the people who then are attracted to this vibration of the spiritual world. So we're taken by the hand by our Acharyas carefully, not to enter in haphazardly or prematurely, but through Vaidhi Bhakti. What is the verse? Iti bhakti bhaktam. Iti bhakti vidam nityam. What is it? No, give me the verse. It's too good. I have to quote it, but I can't remember it right now. So from Nectar of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which says, pregnant within sadhana bhakti is the natural, spontaneous expression of love for Krishna. You don't have it? Well, I can't complain because I don't have it in my brain either. I know the verse, but it won't come into my purview. So this is our inheritance, although some of us, like myself, come from a little suburb in Northern California, home minding my own beeswax, when Richie Korsted knocked on my door and said, hey, I don't want this stuff, but I know you're probably into it, and left it at my door. Little did I know that it was a window to the spiritual world, and there's a process to go with it. So having said that, we need modern-day examples of those who follow the process strictly and who are exemplars in this world so that we can be assured of the process. And one of my dear godbrothers, Vṛndāvana Prabhu, whom I stood with shoulder to shoulder for 3 years in a row in New York City. Right after Mangal Artik, every day we'd go together on the Radha Govinda's altar. And the pujaris let us stand behind the deities because there was a little pathway behind there. It's the only place we could stand without being in the way of all the pujaris doing their work. And we chant the Brahma Samhita, and near the end we chanted the Brahma Samhita and the Purush Sukta together. So I'd like to invite His Grace Vṛndāvana Prabhu to give us a few thoughts and ideas upon visiting this holy land of Vṛndāvana. Hare Krishna. Please welcome Vṛndāvana.
Thank you so much, Vaisesika Prabhu, and all the devotees. I was remembering when Śrīla Prabhupada first came to, when he first came to the 439 Henry Street, Brooklyn Temple in 1971. I happened to be there. And he gave a class for the Sunday feast. And he ended the class. It was really interesting how he said it. He said, now all of you, I request that you please try to understand this philosophy. It's not manufactured by me or my men. He said like that. It's not manufactured by me or my men. It's based on logic and the Shastras. So you try to understand that. But if you don't like to do that, that's okay. Just come, chant and dance with us, take prasadam and go home, and that's all right, he said. So I was thinking about that, and there's, reinforced concrete. Reinforced concrete. We made a new wing in the Philadelphia temple, and the devotee who was organizing the temple floor, he was worried that there's going to be lots of people, lots of devotees in the temple room, and they're going to be dancing, and it could be shaking the deities, and so we got to have reinforced concrete so that the deities aren't bouncing them around, like that. So this following of the Acharyas and the 6 Goswamis, as Vaisesika Prabhu was saying, gives me that feeling of like really this is reinforced concrete. This process of Krishna consciousness, it's not something manufactured by Śrīla Prabhupāda or Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, but it's like the standard way that we will advance now and in the future, and for everyone to do that. And that's such a safe, for me, it's such a safe and secure feeling to know that. And it's reflected again and again in our literatures and in the songs of our Acharyas. The same principle mentioned. For example, the bhajan, Gauranga Bolite Habe. Gauranga Bolite Habe, Pulaka Sharir, Hari Hari Bolite Nayane Babenir. When it's a prayer to Lord Chaitanya, when I chant the name of Lord Gauranga, will my body get goosebumps and my eyes be filled with tears? When will Lord Nityananda be merciful to me and free me from the cycle of birth and death? Vishaya chadiya kabe shuddha habeman. And when I get free from my material desires, then will I be able to see this Vṛndāvana as it is. And then he says, Rupa Raghunath Pade Hoibeyakuti Kabe Hame Bujabase Jugala Piriti. And when I get the following the teachings and the mercy of Rupa Goswami, then I'll be able to understand the teachings, the intimate pastimes of Radha Krishna. Just as you're doing here. This isn't something, too much esoteric. A little bit esoteric, but not too much esoteric. We remember then when Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, Lord Chaitanya brought the Krishna Karnamrita back to his devotees in Bengal and Orissa. And one of those things was the Krishna Karnamrita along with the Brahma Samhita. And then Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta wanted to publish the Krishna Karnamrita. And he asked his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and what does his father say? First he said, don't, none. Then finally he gave and he said, okay, one copy. That's just for you, not for more and more people. No. And when Srila Prabhupada was pushed he was staying at a gentleman's house in Chennai, then it was Madras, and he was saying, you got to talk about Radha Krishna Leela with me. You got to talk about Radha Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And he said, well, please, we have to hear it. And Prabhupada said, I'm not advanced enough to speak about that. Oh my God. This is His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. But how it's being presented today by Vaisesika Prabhu, through the methods, through the teachings of the Cisco Swamis, that's the feeling I get of that reinforced concrete. It's so wonderful. So wonderful. We can really understand these things as they're given by Srila Prabhupada and the previous Acharyas. It's such a safe feeling. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Hare Krishna. One last thing I'll say is that I happened to go to Rath Yatra last year, and at the Rath Yatra, on the stage, the devotee was preaching on the intimate pastimes of Radha Krishna. So I got unhappy about that, and I went to the person organized and said, what's up with this? Sometimes we go that direction, and that's not for public consumption. But what we heard today, this is what we're following the six Goswamis and Srila Prabhupada, and this is appreciated. Have any of you read in the, there was, Prabhupada gave an outline for the age of Kali play. This is the age of Kali, when things come under my sway, and all your good qualities will fade away. You know that don't know that one? Anyway, Srila Prabhupada gave an outline for that play to Hayagriva, and you can find it on Vedabase. And it's very long, and it's very involved. But you know what it starts off with? You have any idea what it starts off with? The rasa dance. And then right from the rasa dance, guess where it goes? Guess. Huh? Yes. Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, just as you were hearing today. So that's, again, reinforced concrete of the same ideas by Narottam Das Thakur, by the Six Goswamis, by Srila Prabhupada, by Vaisesika Prabhu. It's so wonderful. When Lord Rupa Goswami was there and he came to visit Lord Chaitanya in Puri, and he had a verse. He wrote a verse down on a palm leaf. Remember this? And he put it up on his thatch hut, and he went to take bath. In the meantime, Lord Chaitanya came, and he found the palm leaf, and he read it, and he was shocked. How can Rupa Goswami understand my my real intention? So that's where we get that verse. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitang Jena Bhutale Shayambra. So how did he get that? It was that, Lord Chaitanya taught him for 10 days there in Prayag. But this is, he didn't teach him this verse or the exact details he's talking about. Because of his dedication to serving the mission of Lord Chaitanya, then it was revealed to him in his heart like this. So that's, again, the same point. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Reinforced concrete.
Well, this is nice, right? We're here, we're the ingredients in the pot, and we're cooking. This is the yatra. We jump in the pot, different ingredients from all over the world. We're all the different features of Krishna conscious movement, and then here in Vṛndāvana and all the holy places we can keep cooking. And this process is kind of like a musical. Bollywood has it partly right. That in the spiritual world, what happens is there's some dialogue and then everyone breaks into song. I learned it without Bollywood from The Sound of Music when I was a kid. At first I hated it, and then I started liking. There's a way that some dialogue, and then there's an appropriate song sung to bring out the mood. So now's our time to break into song. What do you think? We have a couple of choices because it's a democracy. And try to, anyway. So we can sing the song that we sang in Puri, for those who were in Puri. It was written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur songs are safe and authorized. It's a song, Bhajare Bhajare Amar. It's remembering the Vaishnavas and also remembering the process of coming to Vṛndāvana. That's a nice song. Shamapras likes it. He's smiling. And then we can also sing the verses that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had, the verse that he uttered at Rath Yatra, and then the counterpart verse that Rupa Goswami wrote in order to, well, that's good. We got the vote of Vṛndāvana Prabhu. And the verse that I was struggling to find, and then Hadai Pran Prabhu had produced and passed through Sudhir Madhava, is from the Bhakti Rasamrita. It's an important verse in this context, but it says, Kriti Sadya Bhavet Sadya Bhava, what? Bhava Sa Saranavida Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya. Here, give me the thing. Kriti Sadya Bhavet Sadya Bhava Sa Saranavida Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatyam Hridisadyata. And you'll find this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22:105, and it says this: when transcendental devotional service by which love for Krishna is attained is executed by the senses, it is called sadhana bhakti, or the regulative discharge of devotional service. Such devotion eternally exists within the heart of every living entity. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of devotional service in practice. So that fits with our conversation about practicing according to the regulations of the Acharyas. So just a few reflections. Are we going somewhere else? We're in Vṛndāvana. We're just in Vṛndāvana at Tunga Vidyas. We're not going somewhere else, are we? No, this is it. Yeah. So before we used to go to Vṛndāvana. Well, we're in Vṛndāvana. This is one village in Vṛndāvana. It's huge, huge area, and so many pastimes. So a few years ago, we started coming to the small villages that are overseen by a particular gopi and just staying. And I felt as we were chanting that there was a kind of a breakthrough. Didn't you feel that? Like coming to these places, everybody else is busy, and somehow or other we were able to join together and come here and chant Hare Krishna in this place and pray for mercy. Feels profound to me. I'd just like to hear how everything's holding up for you. Any thoughts, realizations? If you want to share or ask a question, then we'll take a little more time to hear. Yes. While you're getting the microphone to work, the word I asked for, dissimulation, means concealment of reality under a diverse or contrary appearance. Oh my God. The whole material world's a dissimulation. Okay, please go ahead.
So just a reflection about the cat that rushed in, or the kitten, rather. In Barsana, cats don't remain in the basket. Especially on Nityanand Triyodashi.
Haribo.
They are, it goes
Very
on
well
a little
done.
bit, just goes on. They are artsy and crafty and rush into the forest of Vṛndāvana and urge us to do the same. Just like our Acharyas, Gurudevs, Shad Goswamis did. Now that we are in Vṛndāvana, we must remember, Gauranga Bolite Hobe. We must also request Vṛndāvana Prabhu to sing that sometime during this yatra. In the mood of Das Anudas Anudas.
Reflections. Shraddha Devi Dasi.
Thank you, Maharaj and Vṛndāvana Prabhu, for the fantastic Krishna Katha here. It's so beautiful and the weather is so nice, and just feeling very blissful. I was thinking about when we were singing the Shad Goswami Ashtakam, where they said Tyaktva Turnam Ashesha Mandala Patis, that how they left everything when they found something good and something better. And I was thinking about a story that you had recounted. I think it was New York or Canada, I'm forgetting, but you were you were doing Harinam there, and there was a lady who had a young hippie kind of person. She had a cigarette in her hand, and so she was just watching from a distance, and then she got caught into the kirtan, and so she jumped in. She wanted to dance, and then she saw that everybody came to a point where everybody starts clapping, and she couldn't clap with her single hand, so she threw away the cigarette and then she started clapping with them both hands. So I was just thinking of the parallel that how when you find something better, you just give up the lower one, as the Shad Goswamis did.
Was that your story, Krishna Guru? Cigarette?
It was your story, Maharaj. Yeah.
Oh. I remember when we were on book distribution in front of the New York Public Library. I was with the godbrother, and my godbrother was taking Mangal Artik sweets, big, huge chunks of burfi. Not lollipops, but huge, big chunks of burfi in a plastic container, and he would give those out after distributing a book. And there was this family from somewhere, I think it was Australia, New Zealand, and they had two kids, and the kids had these double-decker ice cream cones. And the father had bought a book, and then my godbrother was handing over the huge big piece of burfi, and I watched the kids' eyes, and they were standing next to a trash can, and they both threw them in there to grab the burfi. And I thought that was also a nice example of the Vishaya Vinivartante spirit. Okay, other reflections? Arjuna. And then Trishab.
Hare Krishna. There was a point that you made that Krishna's appetite to enjoy is unlimited, and it reminded me of the point you made in this morning's class about how Nityanand Prabhu is eternally having fun because he's following the order and has the he's following the order with the right attitude. And so I was thinking that was a connection I made, and I thought it was profound how we can also eternally be in joy while giving Krishna enjoyment.
Can you give a verse that expresses that from Prahlad Maharaj's prayers? Near the beginning, starts with an N. Naivatmana prabhuryam nijalabha purno manam janada vidusa kanurno vranite yat yashano bhagavate viditita manam tachchatmane pratimukasya yatamukashri. Remember that one?
I remember you talking about it, yes.
Does anybody remember the verse? Can you say something about it? How it relates to Arjuna's point?
Krishna is basically his... he in this verse, this analogy of mirror is given, like if we are decorated, the reflection in the mirror is also decorated. Similarly, Krishna is full in himself, but actually when we take part...
when we give him something, when we offer to him, he doesn't need it.
He doesn't need it. It is for us.
But it's for our benefit.
Yes.
We get the benefit when we give to him. Thank you. Oh yes, Trishab.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, the kirtan was very powerful, and it seemed that some heaviness was getting lifted from the heart. So thank you so much.
Do you want to say something about that? You want to comment on that? Heaviness getting lifted from the heart.
This, because Narottam Das Thakur says, Golokera Premadhan Harinam Sankirtan. It's coming from the spiritual sky, and that was really, we're getting that, tuning into that vibration, and we can experience it. It's wonderful. I was thinking also that we chanted the Sadgoswami Astakam in that verse, Chaktva Turnamashesha Mandala Pati Shrinim Sadatu Chavat. And it's interesting because Srila Prabhupada often would be called to speak with like high court judges in India and, members of parliament. And he would regularly quote that verse, And, part of my mind thinks, wait a minute. You can't just tell these people to just give up everything and join the Krishna consciousness movement. But like the Hare Krishna mantra, Srila Prabhupada is coming from the spiritual world. And he knows the possibilities. He knows about going after the rhinoceroses. Is that right? Rhinoceros. And just like the Hare Krishna mantra, it's coming from a different vibration, a different place that potency is coming. And it's wonderful to remember. And it's all possible for everybody to do too. If we just free ourselves from that heaviness of heart that we're sometimes feeling by chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Everyone okay? Yes. Okay, a few more reflections. Yes. Chirag.
It's a question. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So as Krishna's parts and parcels, we have that sort of direct relationship with Krishna. And in our profession as Krishna's appreciators, and in the appreciation process, we understand that we are the servant of the servant of the servant, n times of Krishna. So then that means we are serving Krishna through his servitors, but then it's not quite like a direct, being with Krishna, serving Krishna. So it almost feels like, this is me, from my perspective, that, kind of left out. And it might be a reflection of my current state of existence where it's like, okay, everything for Krishna, it doesn't matter whether or not I have something direct with him or whether or not I get to see him. So how do you reconcile the directness and then also in the appreciation being so distant?
A couple thoughts you can look into at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, we find that as Sanjaya is recounting to Dhritarashtra what's happening on the Kurukshetra battlefield before the war starts, and he's actually the one who's relaying what Krishna is saying to Arjuna. And Prabhupada comments there that this is the mystery of the parampara system, that the apparent indirectness of it is felt directly. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, pratyaksha-avagamam dharmyam, you feel it directly. But there's a way in which, when we're accepting it in a humble way, through those who are representatives of Krishna, and we're putting ourselves as their servants, then we're receiving even more mercy, and it's not diminished at all. Prabhupada compared it to the electricity coming through a copper wire. The electricity 100 miles away will be the same as long as the connection's not broken. And you can test it, although I don't recommend it. If you pick up the wire, you'll feel it directly. And so devotees who serve as the servants of the servant's servant, they may have a more direct experience because of approaching Krishna in humility. For instance, Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers, again and again, although Nrsingadev is directly in front of him, Prahlad Maharaj says, I can't give up the service of my spiritual master because it's through him that I can see you directly and continue to serve you. So I'm serving through him. And in that very instant, when one is offering one's service to a beloved servitor, a representative of Krishna, one feels the direct reciprocation of Krishna simultaneously. So it's more of a mental construct to think of distance, because as Vṛndāvana Prabhu was pointing out, even with the Harinam Sankirtan, although Goloka Vṛndāvana, if we were to measure by yojanas, it may seem like a long way away, but the experience is direct through the holy name, because it's right there. So the servants bring the electricity. And in some ways, it's enhanced as it goes along, because we hear about Shukadeva. Shukadev's speaking, and because he's experienced it, he's realized it himself. It's like Prabhupada mentions the mangoes that are touched by the beak of the parrot. Shuka means parrot. They ripen faster, they become more sweet. And so you're hearing from somebody who has realized what they heard. And as I mentioned before, if you're hearing from somebody who has love for Krishna, it may be even more important than hearing from Krishna directly, because there's a way in which the internal potency of the Lord is there within the heart of the person who loves Krishna, and that has a very profound effect on someone. That's mentioned by Prithu Maharaj when he says that when a devotee who has love for Krishna speaks, it seems like regular syntax and words. The vibration may be something that is touching the eardrum, but the words themselves, he says poetically, touch Krishna's lotus feet, and then they mix with the saffron particles that are there. So when you hear the sound vibration, it has a different effect on you, because the sound vibration is mixed with saffron particles. Okay. More reflections? Questions? Yes. Vicky. Okay, wait, before you go. Yes.
Just another, as you were saying, we used to say this phrase is, the spiritual master and the Acharyas are the transparent via medium to Krishna. So it's there, but they're transparent. Yeah.
In that regard, if you have glasses, you may say, why do you put something in front of your eyes? Wouldn't that be obstructive? In my case, no. And so somebody else in front or others, it may be magnified. It may give you a clearer vision, following up on what Vṛndāvana Prabhu had said, via medium. Glasses are a via medium, so you can see better. You can see Krishna more completely. Bhakti Vicky. Queen of the cowbell. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. In the car on the way here, I was noting how it's very charming how the construction is held up by natural wood, as if the trees are growing as part of the building. And Tulsi shared how it's just like when Krishna was holding up Giri Govardhan, and he lifted his pinky a little bit because the Rajabasi said that they could handle it and they wanted to help him. And when he lifted his pinky, it started to shake and crack a little bit. And Prabhu was sharing how when we saw a wagon of school children being pulled by a cow, and they looked so happy with their legs hanging off the side. And Prabhu shared how when he was a child, he used to sit in the same way on his way to school.
Are you looking at Chikujamena?
Yes.
He used to ride in a little cow pulled, a little ox cart. What's it called? Baligari.
And just seeing Sri Radhe everywhere, in the dust it seemed like there was a gentle whisper of, do you remember, do you remember? And I was just reflecting how our sadhana is the trust that we build with Krishna so that he can remind us.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Prabhupada did advocate for the village life. In fact, when he started Gita Nagari in the West, he was very much enamored of the peaceful environment there, and he was mentioning how he saw animals that were in cooperation with one another. He mentioned to one of my godbrothers, did you see that? Did you see that? They live in harmony here. And that's Vṛndāvana, as Prabhupada mentions it in the pastime of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu walking to Jagannath Puri. And wherever he went, the animals would chant, they would also embrace, and so forth. And just being in a simple environment, Prabhupada advocated for it. It takes one away from the sense of ugra karma. He often spoke about how there's an artificial standard of living in which it's noticeable now. If you really look, there's box stores everywhere built for efficiency. There's no aesthetic quality to them. It's all about, we got to have turnover. The faster you can get the product in and the faster you can get it out, the more money you can make from it. It actually makes the soul sick. And I know I don't like it. In the old days, the architecture, you'll notice the biggest building was the temple or the church or the mosque. It's what you could see from miles away. And in religious periods, music, the architecture and so forth tends to be more expressive and beautiful in many ways. People lose that aesthetic when they become atheistic and they just think life is meant for efficiency. So I'm glad you're appreciating the aesthetic, because it's part of the experience of coming to the Dham. It's just the feeling of, I feel better here, I feel peaceful, and so forth. And for the third time, Prabhupada did advocate for that. He wanted rural communities like New Gokula, New Govardhan, which is a thriving rural community in New Zealand. Nirkul's looking at me, yeah, Australia. Yeah, one of those countries over there. I gotta get out more, you know. In Australia. And Yeah, he advocated those types of things. He liked that, to live nearer to nature and so forth, and then have a Krishna conscious setting, because you start to notice things that they're natural. There's natural bounty within nature, and who's it coming from? If you miss all that, it's a great loss to human society. Yes, Melanie.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I appreciated the way you started the class with Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura's quote saying that we hold the rag marg way up high, and also the yatha yatha gaurapadara vindevars, and then what Prabhu was mentioning about due to the dedication to the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is where everything will be revealed to your heart, in your heart. So that's the safest and the best place to be, is to be in the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who will ultimately reveal that within our heart. So
I also want to point out, because I thought of it while we were chanting, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which somebody alluded to earlier, as one of the foundational guiding literatures from the Goswamis that Prabhupada mentioned in a very positive light, which inspired some of the devotees to make it available, and they have in such an amazing way, so much so that the production and the translation of Sanatan Goswami's seminal Gaudiya work was noticed by Joseph T. O'Connell, who at the time was the preeminent scholar of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the world, a Canadian fellow, and he especially appreciated Gopi Pranadana Prabhu's translation. He said it had never been done before, because the way in which he had written the book he gave the narrative and then he gave commentary on the narrative. It was very difficult for people to understand or to render into a readable, understandable form. So, be that as may, there's a way in which, in the story itself, the hero of the story, Gopakumar, comes back to Vṛndāvana after traversing every conceivable part of the universe and beyond the universe to seek his ultimate position in relationship to Krishna. And Narada Muni gives him the instruction to come back to Vṛndāvana. And from Vṛndāvana, do you know what he told him to do? Huh? Have Harinam Sankirtan. Harinam Sankirtan in Vṛndāvana is the direct gateway, he says, back to Goloka Vṛndāvana. So you may have been feeling that also, that direct corridor that's already there in the holy name, but especially recommended from Vṛndāvana. Yes. Ishwari Raj, he needs the mic.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. I just want to share this one thing that I was here back in 2004, but of course I was not in Krishna consciousness. And we came with a family, and there was a tour guide, and he took us around in Vṛndāvana. I think near where the Rasa Leela happened, and they were saying something about if you go there in the night, and if you come back, you get either crazy or what do you say? Like deaf or no, blind. Yeah. And I was like, oh wow. But after that, I said, coming here with the devotees and just hearing the katha in the Dham, it just like there's a different feeling. There's different energy, and I feel more connected. I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel happy just being here. Thank you.
Well, it's actually true. You do become deaf to the noise of the material world. Krishna says, all that is heard or to be heard, you transcend that. Even when he's talking to Arjuna about the promises of karma kanda and so forth, he said, You won't be interested in that anymore. And blind to the so-called beauty of the material world. Because once you've seen the real beauty of the spiritual world, then going back to the shadow is not attractive. So you do become deaf and blind if you go and experience Krishna's rasa, which is there within the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So I think it would be nice if we prepare at some point to head back to our headquarters, and there it's a high likelihood that they'll feed us. And I thought maybe we just take a few minutes to chant a little japa here and just look around, just absorb, because we did it when we were at Haridas Thakur's and it was really nice, everyone just independent. So I'll say the prayer now before we leave, and then we'll be ready to go. Dear Śrīla Prabhupada, dear Shri Guru, all the gurus of the Guru Parampara, Tunga Vidya, Saki, if you so desire, please empower us to spread the Sankirtan movement and bring people closer to your lotus feet. Please give us the aesthetic beauty of the spiritual world through chanting Hare Krishna, so that we can give up the paltry visions and sounds of this world and point our attention fully back home, back to Godhead, even as we walk in this world. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer, in whole or in part. Please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Vanja Gopalabhishcha Kripasindavevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaiṣṇavebhyo Namo Namah. Take a little time to chant. If you want to walk around, and Shraddha Devi Dasi will let us know when we have to go. Hare Krishna.